The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 231. Unaware of Kiran's intentions, Lily snorted. If the old man didn't know the secrets of Dragonsmount, no one would give a damn about the Simmons family. Shut up! Marshall shouted in panic. The old man knew the secrets of Dragonsmount? Henry had not lied after all. Asking Yvonne to perform the acquisition was the right choice. Stifling his jubilation, he fixed his stare on Lily. What else do you know? Lily hated him, but right now she hated Marshall more. After all, she had shared the same bed with him for a long time. She had sworn her eternal devotion to him, only for him to abandon her in the face of disaster. How could she not be furious when she had gotten her hands broken for his sake? She snarled. Blooming Group was only able to survive this crisis because it received backing from an influential figure who helped to fix Blooming Cream's defects. Otherwise, the company would already be eating dust. Cut the crap, Lily. Marshall anxiously tried to stop her. I'm telling the truth. Your father received help in exchange for Dragonsmount's secrets. Lily was determined to risk everything. If it weren't for those secrets, your family wouldn't have thrived until now. Now you're just asking for it. Like a maniacal wolf, Marshall rushed forward to strike her. In a flash, Kiran planted himself in his way. Marshall skidded to a stop and stared daggers at him but did not dare say a word. All he could do was huff angrily in protest. His father went to Dragonfell for a meeting to solve Blooming Group's problems. That's how the company was revived. Realizing that her relationship with Marshall had completely fallen apart, Lily continued to expose the truth without care. The veins on Marshall's forehead bulged. He longed to kill Lily, but he was too afraid of Kiran to make a move. Kiran wanted to uncover more secrets, so he remained calm. Marshall's father was already resolving the issue. If he took action now, he would nip their plans in the bud and alert the enemy instead. So, you're not selling Blooming Group, huh? Kiran suddenly switched his tone. That's right. In fact, I'm going to make it bigger and stronger. Marshall was relieved that Kiran did not attack him. What a pity. The latter shook his head in disappointment. Marshall eyed him coldly. He decided not to insult him further. Insults meant nothing against savages. Kiran was a terrifying savage. Kiran's eyes darted to Lily's hands. If you go to the hospital now, you might still be able to get them fixed. Lily's face brightened with hope. All anger toward him forgotten, she turned and raced off. Marshall did not dare give chase either. Kiran watched Lily run off, then cast a regretful look at Blooming Group. Too bad I can't acquire it. Marshall merely snorted. Kiran walked over to Yvonne. Let's go back to the Bayville Hotel. She nodded, got into her car, and drove off. Kiran also got into his car and followed behind. Marshall was both relieved and depressed. He was supposed to have fun watching Yvonne get beaten up, but Kiran just had to interfere. However, he did not dare offend Kiran further, so he could only storm back upstairs. Even Lily no longer mattered to him now. Remembering his father's advice to endure, he swallowed all his rage. The crowd of employees dispersed, and the entrance returned to its usual silent state. Not far away, a car's engine was activated. Sitting in the car was a gorgeous, captivating woman. It was none other than Lillian. Her gaze was trained in the direction where Kiran and Yvonne had sped off. Her lips curved into an alluring smile. So, Kiran was getting himself side chicks now, huh? She started the car and left Blooming Group. At the same time, she made a phone call. By Neptune's Cove karaoke today. The smile on her lovely face grew wider. Kiran, will you be able to resist this temptation? Kiran was unaware of her presence. At this moment, he was reading the information from Starley, but there was nothing particularly useful. However, he was shocked to learn that there were government officials supporting Blooming Group and aiding in clearing its name. This made his heart tremble. Were Dragonsmount's secrets that far-reaching that even the nation was involved? If that were the case, the York family's demise would make sense, and so did Henry's words. Kiran's heart was heavy, but he was even more motivated to uncover the truth. Just then, he received a call from Starley. Mr. Kiran, have you seen what I sent you? Starley asked pleasantly. Yes, I'm going to give you a mission now, said Kiran. What mission? Starley perked up. Work with Serena to find a woman to seduce Marshall Simmons. Try to get him to fall head over heels for her. Mr. Kiran, are you going to use a honey trap on him? Starley wondered in amusement. You'll get a reward if you complete this mission. Kiran refused to elaborate. Reward? Will you let me pursue you? Starley asked tentatively. Well, I do need a maid. Kiran rolled his eyes. Then, can I role-play as your maid? Starley grew bolder. Kiran hung up right away in irritation. She was just another loony. On the other end, Starley burst into giggles. Kiran dialed Serena's number. The first thing she said when she picked up was, "It hurts." Kiran's hand on the steering wheel jolted, and exasperation bubbled up inside him. Her madness was on another level. Suppressing his random thoughts, he ordered, "Find Marshall's girlfriend, Lily." I broke her hands. Bring her back, and I'll fix them and give her a task. Also, I need you to work with Starley to find a woman to seduce Marshall. No, Serena demurred, unless you spank me. If you don't do it, I won't go, Serena insisted stubbornly. A question surfaced in Kiran's mind. Was this woman a masochist? Was she mentally ill? Kiran swore inwardly. He might have to start studying psychology. It looks like traditional medicine would not be able to cure her. Let's meet and talk about this tonight, he suggested wearily in the end. Great, Serena cut the call like an excited little girl. Kiran considered ways to help her overcome her mental illness as he followed Yvonne's car to Bayville Hotel. After being closed down by Yvonne, Peace Corporation was now running this hotel. When she got out of the car, the sight of her caked in blood and grime startled the security guards at the entrance. They were even more surprised to see Kiran emerge from his car. He glanced at Yvonne. Let's go to your room. She nodded and led the way. They entered the lobby and Kiran said to the receptionist, I don't want anyone disturbing Miss Yvonne and I for the next 2 hours. The receptionist's eyes widened at them. Were they? Yvonne shuddered and almost fell, but Kiran caught her. Her mind was in turmoil. Was Kiran going to? Take a bath. Chapter 232. Take a bath, then come to me naked. His words echoed around the lobby. The receptionist jolted as if electrocuted. Yvonne let herself fall weakly into Kiran's arms. Did Kiran really want her? Had he been moved because she had taken a beating for his sake and decided to accept her? Remembering how he had roared, "How dare you lay a hand on my woman?" She was torn between happiness and nervousness. Silence descended over the lobby, but a note of suggestiveness lingered in the air. The other employees stopped working and stared at them in incredulity. Ding! That was the sound of the elevator arriving on the first floor. Yvonne recovered from her daze, her face crimson with embarrassment. With surprising strength, she broke free of Kiran's grasp and hurried into the elevator. Kiran sauntered in after her. When the elevator closed its doors and started its ascent, the receptionist turned to the other employees. Did you hear that? Take a bath! Then come to me naked. The employees repeated in disbelief before hastily covering their mouths and glancing around, afraid that someone would overhear them. Kiran and Yvonne heard every word inside the elevator. The former remained indifferent. The latter was beside herself with agitation and mortification. When the elevator stopped, she walked briskly to her office, which also served as her room. However, she could not help squirming uncomfortably. She could feel a pair of piercing eyes watching her, filling her with the urge to sink through the floor. If Kiran truly embraced her, would he desert her in the end to take revenge on the Quinn family? Should she make the first move later, or let him take the lead? To increase the chances of her family's survival, she decided to go with the former. She even began to regret her lack of experience. Kiran, on the other hand, was pondering Marshall's father's identity. How did he manage to secure such a strong backing? Yvonne entered her room, put her phone on the coffee table, and fled into the bedroom without a word. This luxury suite had 2 bathrooms as well as a bedroom. At this moment, she was too shy to use the bathroom outside. However, she was determined to offer her body to Kiran today. Kiran sat on the couch and lost himself in thought. About 10 minutes later, Yvonne's phone rang on the coffee table. The caller ID read Grandpa. Kiran was delighted. He was just about to ask Henry about Marshall's father. He picked up the phone and tapped on accept. Yvonne, where are you? Henry asked in a low voice. This is Kiran York. When Henry heard this, he immediately grew alert and anxious, as if he had been stung by a bee. However, he perked up the next second. If Kiran and Yvonne were together, Would more people in the Quinn family be able to live? Well, where are you? In her room in Bayville Hotel, Kiran replied coolly. I'll leave you alone then. Before Henry could hang up, Kiran said, I want to know more about Marshall's father. Henry was taken aback, but he quickly answered, Marshall's father's name is Zachary Simmons. He used to be the administrator of Bayville University's Schuyler Library, the same library your father donated. Because of his thorough research on Dragonsmount, the university established a history department specially for him, and he became the department's first head. Later on, he became known throughout the country for being an expert in historical archaeology. Kiran frowned as he tried to piece the information together. Zachary had previously been poisoned by the secret records of Dragonsmount, and now Blooming Group had overcome its crisis with strong support. Apparently, Dragonsmount was behind the success of many. What else do you know? I've never paid much attention to him, but I don't think he's all that simple, or else the Simmons family would not have risen in the business world. If you want to know more, you can watch him more closely, said Henry. Henry, I'm getting more and more satisfied with your performance. Keep up the good work. With that, Kiran hung up. Henry felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders, and he could not help shedding tears of joy. There was hope for survival, after all. Chapter 233. Yvonne came out of the bedroom after her bath. However, she was wrapped in a towel. Even though she had decided to make the first move, she could not bring herself to show her naked body to him directly. When she noticed her phone in his hand, her eyes widened with curiosity. Your grandpa called, so I asked him a few questions. He put it down nonchalantly. Yvonne nodded, blushing. It's all right. I told you to get naked, didn't I? Eyeing her towel, Kiran demanded in vexation. Yvonne flushed red down to her neck. Her whole body quivered with shame, and because she was already weak from her illness, she could barely stand still. She fixed him a pleading look. I'll remove your towel and put it aside. Kiran ordered sternly, his face expressionless. Yvonne was close to tears. She scowled at him petulantly, thinking to herself, has he forgotten that I'm a woman? Can't he spare me some dignity? You want me to do it? Kiran snapped. His assertiveness only aggravated her internal conflict. Reminding herself that she was going to make the first move anyway, she gritted her teeth, ripped off the towel, and tossed it aside. I'm afraid I'm not fertile now. Ah! Before she could finish, she let out a cry, and then she saw what seemed like countless white lights falling on her. With wide eyes, she glanced down at her body, only to find it pierced by silver needles all over, giving her a hedgehog-like appearance. She stared at Kiran in surprise. In a flash, he materialized next to her and began controlling the entry and exit of the silver needles. Yvonne wanted to curl up and die. She thought that Kiran was going to sleep with her, so she decided to initiate it and even let her imagination run wild, but in the end, he was only trying to cure her illness. This was so embarrassing. There was not a hint of lust in Kiran's heart. The woman in front of him was no different from the bronze statue he used to practice acupuncture. His full concentration was on controlling the movement of the silver needles. Yvonne's skin crawled at the sight of the silver needles on her body. Soon, her body went numb as black blood flowed out of several points of insertion. Was that poison? Yvonne gaped at her body helplessly. The seconds ticked by. After what seemed like forever, there was a flicker of motion before her eyes as Kiran withdrew the needles. Ah. She moaned softly in pleasure. She quickly covered her mouth. Her body had never felt so wonderful, so light and warm. Kiran slumped on the floor with a thud. Yvonne rushed forward to help him up, but she immediately realized that she was coated in dark liquid, giving the illusion of black clothes. She stopped in her tracks and asked, Are you okay? Kiran groaned inwardly. How could he be okay when he had exerted himself for 2 hours? Go ahead and wash up. I'll take a bath soon, too. Noting the unpleasant smell on her body, Yvonne nodded and dashed into the bathroom in the back. Kiran slipped off his clothes and entered the other bathroom. He sat in the tub and recovered his strength while he bathed. Worried about him, Yvonne cleaned herself swiftly, but when she ran out, only his clothes were there. She knocked on the bathroom door and asked anxiously, Are you all right? I'm fine. I just need some rest, Kiran replied. Yvonne was relieved. Just then, her gaze landed on Kiran's clothes, and a smile formed on her lips. Gathering them in her arms, she left the room and ordered a hotel employee to buy clothes according to his size. Then, she returned to the room and got dressed. Only this time she was wearing a dress. She discovered that the coldness in her body had been significantly alleviated, and she could now bear to wear a dress indoors. She admired her voluptuous figure in the mirror, a sliver of hope rising in her heart. It would be perfect if she really became Kiran's woman. After 2 hours of rest, Kiran emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, only to find that his clothes were gone. Chapter 234. Yvonne pretended not to notice. She looked at Kiran and said sincerely, "Thank you for helping me with the treatment. I feel much better now. I can wear a dress without feeling cold." To convince Kiran even more, she stretched out her long, slender right leg and said, "Look, this is the first time I'm wearing stockings. I don't feel cold at all." She sensually caressed the shiny black stockings, drawing attention to her legs. Kiran, who had just come out of the shower, felt a little lightheaded. Yvonne was the definition of sickly beauty. If she were not ill, her beauty would be on par with Snow's. She was dressed in a seductive outfit. Her face was glowing after the treatment, making her look radiant and full of life. She looked unbelievably charming, like a woman who was madly in love. However, Kiran could not think about that right now. He looked around and said, "Where are my clothes?" Yvonne was disappointed to hear him say that. She wanted to seduce Kiran and make him fall in love with her. She did not expect him to talk about his clothes. She looked at him while blushing and said, "I sent someone to buy you new clothes. I don't know your size, so I had them take your clothes away." Kiran was speechless. Could they not have left him some underwear to cover himself up? Did they have to check his size for underwear too? Yvonne nervously asked, "Are you angry?" Kiran shook his head. "It's fine. Please call and ask when it'll be delivered. I have some urgent matters to tend to." Yvonne could not hide her disappointment. It was such a good chance, but Kiran would not budge. Did Kiran have no feelings for her at all? She knew how stubborn Kiran was, so she called the staff. The staff actually brought it back a long time ago. It was Yvonne who told them not to bring it in. Soon after, the clothes were sent into the room. Kiran asked Yvonne to go into the back room so he could change. Yvonne was annoyed because she thought that he was being unfair. If Kiran saw her naked, why could she not see him naked? However, she dared not say it out loud. A few minutes later, Kiran came out in a new set of clothes, looking dashing. He peeked into the back room and said, "I'm leaving. I'll call you if anything happens." Yvonne's heart was filled with sorrow. Was she dispensable to Kiran? When Kiran opened the door, Yvonne rushed out. Kiran stopped in his tracks to look at her. He said, "Yes, I'll have your kids." After saying that, Yvonne bit her lip nervously. There was a hint of determination and desire behind her expression. "I'm married," Kiran responded simply and walked away. Yvonne plopped onto the ground as if her body had been emptied. She looked at the door, wondering what was so undesirable about her. Could it be the York family and the Quinn family's enmity? Kiran completely ignored what had happened. He drove back to Xander Corporation, where his main focus was, refining drugs. It was already noon. When he got back, Onyx's men were still training, but Onyx himself was not there. He said that he had other things to do, so Kiran did not question him. Frank was busy concocting the pill. He had already taken his medicine and his complexion was looking much better. He told Kiran gratefully, "It's very effective." Kiran nodded and looked at the strength pill Frank was concocting. He did everything correctly. It seemed like Frank had a solid foundation. However, Frank still lacked control, resulting in a liquid elixir instead of a pill. Kiran squatted down to adjust the firewood. He spread them out to ensure an even fire. Frank watched him silently. "The logic of making medicine is the same as life. You must look at the big picture. Right now, you're only focusing on one part of it. You have to broaden your outlook in the long run," said Kiran while controlling the fire. Frank did not say a word. He knew that Kiran was giving him advice on his life. It has to do with the nature of the medicine. If you focus the heat in the center, the medicine will heat unevenly and lose its effectiveness. Then, you won't be able to turn it into a pill because it'll stay in its liquid state. Kiran looked at the concoction again and explained. Frank said, "Thanks for the advice. I've been so focused on hatred that I forgot to look at the big picture." Kiran was pleased to see that he understood. He nodded and said, "Your hatred is nothing compared to mine. Although I don't know who your enemy is, I doubt they're stronger than mine. If I were like you, I would have lost my chance of getting revenge. I would have been dead too." Frank looked at him with a complicated expression and asked, "Are you from the York family? The family that used to be #1 in Bayville?" Kiran nodded. "Yes." Frank's expression changed drastically. He squinted like he was debating whether he was telling the truth. Kiran looked calm, as if he did not care what he thought about him. After a while, Frank said to him, "I want to work with you." Kiran was ecstatic. He finally managed to sway him. However, he still looked at Frank calmly and said, "You must think carefully before making this decision. The York family has many enemies." He looked at the people training and added, "Some of them quit, but I don't blame them. It's human nature. I don't care about them. I want to work with you," Frank said firmly. Kiran noticed that Frank showed no hesitation at all. Kiran reached out to shake his hand. "Welcome." "Thank you." Frank was excited. They held each other's hand firmly. Immediately, they formed a mutual trust and an unspoken promise to be there for each other through thick and thin. Frank took a deep breath and said, "I'm a member of the School of Medicine, and my master was the leader of the school, but he was persecuted by traitors. Both of us were faced with a life-or-death situation, but my master saved my life. He did not make it out alive." Kiran knew that he was from the School of Medicine, and he knew that he carried resentment, but he did not think that he was the leader's apprentice. "How did that happen?" "I don't know the details because my master hid it from me to protect me. The only thing I know is that people there only care about money. They no longer care about medical ethics." "The Healing Prince is one of your people too, right?" Kiran asked. "Do you know that traitor?" Frank was provoked. Chapter 235. "Did he have something to do with your master's death?" Kiran asked Frank. Frank clenched his fists, veins bulging on his forehead. He said, "Although he wasn't directly related to his death, he was the one responsible for destroying the School of Medicine." "Destroy?" Kiran asked. The goal of the School of Medicine was to help humanity. However, many were so focused on studying that they rarely went out into society. When that traitor left, he caused a lot of trouble that the school had to take care of. While they were busy cleaning up his mess, the excitement of the outside world caught their attention. They could no longer bear how lonely and underpaid they were while studying medicine. They missed the outside world. After that, they were all so focused on making money that their medical knowledge was left incomplete. Then, everything at the school changed. My master was a stubborn person. He firmly believed that consistent efforts would help one succeed. When his ideas conflicted with those of the other members of the school, they joined forces to kill him and injure me. Frank explained in one go. Kiran nodded without a word. Seeing as Kiran did not say anything, Frank asked out of curiosity, "You're probably thinking about how I survived after I was seriously injured and poisoned, right?" "That's not the point." Kiran stopped him. Frank was shocked that Kiran did not want to know the secret he was hiding. "The strength pill is ready." Kiran changed the subject and lifted the lid. The strong smell assaulted Frank's senses. It felt like the spring breeze entering his body. He immediately looked inside and saw 20 white pills. They were white and smooth, like pearls. However, the best thing of all was the smell. Frank looked surprised. He did not think that Kiran would be able to refine the pills. It was a miracle. Even his master would not be able to achieve that. It was unbelievable that Kiran could do it at this age. Kiran picked one up and handed it to Frank. "Take it 7 days later after your body recovers." You're giving me one?" Frank's eyes lit up. He was touched. "Don't dwell on it, especially about the Healing Prince. When you grow stronger, it'll be nothing," Kiran responded. Although there must be other reasons for the destruction of the school, he did not want to pressure Frank into telling him. He had already given him his trust anyway. Frank felt a tinge of regret looking at Kiran. He was indeed not strong enough. Why else would he have failed? Now that he had Kiran's help, he felt much more confident. He said sincerely, "Thank you, Kiran." Kiran smiled and stored the remaining pills. "You can stay here for the time being." Frank nodded. Then Kiran went upstairs to look for Snow. Snow was analyzing the company's future development plans. All of them contained ideas about how they could expand their drug manufacturing. When Kiran walked in, she smiled with her eyes. However, she looked down and pretended not to notice him. Kiran smirked. "Yvonne bought new clothes for me. They fit me well, and it smells like her perfume." Snow was pretending to read the documents when her head started spinning. He touched a raw nerve, so she jumped out of her chair. "Is my wife jealous?" Kiran smiled at Snow. Snow snarled. Piff! In your dreams. Kiran felt like teasing her more. You're right. Giving birth is so painful. Maybe I should let others give birth to my child. Snow's blood was boiling. Did this jerk sleep with Yvonne? Kiran was secretly happy to see her angry but pretended not to notice. Snow felt like she was going mad when she saw him dressed from head to toe in new clothes. He even smelled of Yvonne's perfume. She controlled her anger and told herself to calm down. She could not get angry at him. How could that jerk sleep with beautiful women as he pleased? Kiran laughed out loud. What are you laughing about? Snow asked angrily. My wife looks so adorable when she's jealous. I'm not jealous. She's the one who has to suffer by giving birth to your kids. I'm happy I don't have to. Snow denied it. Keep the lies coming, wifey, Kiran mocked. You jerk. Snow could tell that he was purposely making her angry, so she threw the document at him. Kiran grabbed it and walked over to her. He smiled and said, Aren't you going to bite me? His eyes were fixated on Snow's red lips as if he was longing to kiss her. Every time she wanted to bite him, he would just kiss her. She rolled her eyes and said, I'll go get a dog to bite you instead. Ha. Kiran laughed. Why are you laughing? Snow asked angrily. Wifey, you're too adorable, Kiran said. You. Snow had enough of Kiran's teasing, so she ran toward him. In the end, Kiran opened his arms to hug her. What are you doing? Snow screamed as she felt like her chest was about to explode. No woman is better than my hideous wife, Kiran said beside her ears. All her strength was drained from her body. What man would call his wife hideous? Did he really just say that? She got angrier when she was reminded of the prank. Then Snow suddenly kissed him first. Kiran was surprised. She pulled away quickly and said, After that kiss, you're not allowed to talk about that ever again. Anything for you, wifey, Kiran said affectionately. Snow was surprised to hear him agree. However, she had a bad feeling. When a man is nice to his woman, he must be guilty of something. She pushed his chest to stay as far away from him as possible. Did you really sleep with Yvonne? An evil smile appeared on his face and he said, I can just prove it to you. He held Snow even tighter. Snow was instantly petrified. She immediately shook her head and said, No, it's fine. I know you didn't. Why won't you let me prove it to you? We can make a baby in the meantime, Kiran said naughtily. Snow blushed. She looked endearing, but she shook her head violently and said, I'm still not ready. Does that mean you accept me as your husband? Kiran smiled. Snow looked at him. Thinking of everything he had done, she nodded. Kiran felt all warm inside. He said, Then you must promise me something. Chapter 236. Snow's mind was racing. She anxiously wondered if he was going to sleep with her. She was nervous, so she tried to reason with Kiran. Wait until we get out of this crisis. Then, I'll let you sleep with me, okay? Kiran was shocked. His entire body went stiff. Snow then realized that she had misunderstood. Kiran did not imply that he was going to sleep with her. She felt humiliated for what she said earlier, so she growled, Damn you! You're messing with me. Kiran held back his laughter and said, You misunderstood me, wifey. I wasn't messing with you. Were you going to sleep with me? Snow asked shyly. Kiran shook his head. Well, what is it then? Snow felt like she had dug her own grave. She just wanted to run away and hide. There's something I want to discuss with you. What is it? You must promise me first, Kiran said. I won't. Snow refused. It's not about having sex, Kiran said resignedly. Don't say that again. Snow was so angry she was going insane. All she could think about was sleeping with Kiran. Kiran looked at the adorable Snow affectionately. He caressed her head and said, I just want you to promise me that no matter what happens in the future, you'll trust me. Wow, what do you mean? Snow asked softly. I'm going to fight Wolfgate at Dragonsmount in 2 days. I don't know if they'll bring your parents. Kiran sounded even more serious. Snow froze. Kiran hugged her and said, Wolfgate kidnapped Henry and the others' children to blackmail them. I believe that's why your parents were kidnapped too. Are they? Snow did not finish her sentence. Her eyes were already brimming with tears. Kiran felt a stab to the chest when he looked at Snow. He said confidently, If they hurt your parents, I'll make sure I get my revenge on them, even if that means destroying Imperial Dragon. Snow was trembling, so Kiran hugged her tight. I just want you to be safe. I don't want you to be in danger. Tears streamed down her face. She was worried about losing her closest family. Truthfully speaking, Kiran and her grandfather were her closest family. She no longer had any memories of her parents, but she missed them so much. Kiran knew how much she longed for them, so he held her and pressed their faces together. That's just the worst-case scenario. It may not happen. I just hope that you won't let your emotions get the best of you when the time comes. Snow felt the warmth of Kiran's face. She understood what he meant. She was not as calm and emotionless as he was. I'll promise you anything. Snow put her arms around his waist and held him tight like she was afraid of letting him go. If they ever hurt my loved ones, I'll make them pay, Kiran promised her. Kiran, Snow sobbed. Snow was so moved that she burst into tears. Their hearts had never been this close before. Snow felt safe around him. Kiran's mind was racing. He did not know whether Snow's parents were still alive. Regulus's threat about turning him into a specimen made him worried about their safety. He was afraid that Snow would not be able to handle the truth, so he reassured her before it happened. Snow cried for a long time. Finally, Kiran let her sleep in his arms. He looked at her beautiful face endearingly. The Xander family had sacrificed so much for the York family, but there was nothing he could do to repay them. He decided that he would spend his entire life loving Snow. At the same time, he would care for Rain too. Behind his ruthlessness toward his enemies, he held a deep affection for his loved ones. He was willing to go through hell for them. He would sacrifice his life to save theirs. His love for them inspired him to do great things. Inside Neptune's Cove karaoke, the woman in front of Onyx was wearing a leather jacket and leather pants. They fit snugly around her curves, and she looked menacing. He received a call from someone saying they wanted to buy out Neptune's Cove karaoke. He went over there immediately because they wanted it right away. Onyx was furious. How could someone want to buy the place right after they suspended operations? It could not just be a coincidence. Were they doing this on purpose to cause trouble? After he rushed over there, he noticed the sexy woman. She was the type of woman who could sick a man dry in bed, but there was no way she was capable of a hostile takeover. Onyx wondered where her confidence came from. Mr. Onyx, calm down. We're offering you $100 million for this place. It's a good price, but your face looks like we're about to rob you, the woman in the leather outfit said calmly. It's not about the money. It's not for sale, Onyx insisted. Not for sale? Why? Is that not enough money? You can name a price if you think it's too little, the woman said haughtily. I'm not selling it no matter how much money you give me. Onyx turned her down coldly. Now that he has returned to the York family, Neptune's Cove karaoke is the York family's property. Down. If he sold the place just when the York family was about to rise, he would be bringing them, he would never sell it, and he believed that Kiran would not sell it too. The woman in the leather clothes glanced at him and said, Mr. Onyx, I've told you before, if you refuse to sign the contract, we'll open for business tonight. You're taking it by force? Onyx asked as if he was looking at a fool. Who did she think she was? Did she really think she could do that? Did she even know who he was? If you don't believe me, let's see what happens tonight. The woman stared at him and smiled. Ha! Fine! Onyx scoffed. 8 o'clock. You're invited, the woman said, smirking. Onyx was fuming. What did she mean by that? Was she trying to earn his money? He then retorted, Don't worry, I'll be there. Onyx left right away. If you want it back, make sure you find me a worthy opponent and not weaklings, said the woman arrogantly to provoke him. Onyx felt like he was about to explode. Did he just meet up with an idiot? He walked faster. He decided to come tonight to show them that the York family was not to be messed with in Bayville. The woman was satisfied to see him angry. She smirked and got into the car beside her. The person sitting in the car was Vixen, Lillian. Chapter 237. Vixen, Onyx isn't selling it, the woman in leather frowned and said. That's normal. I would be surprised if he did, Lillian smiled radiantly. She had it all planned out. Vixen, I've told him to be here at 8 to attend the opening of Neptune Cove's karaoke. If only you were a guy, Lauren Jean. Lillian smiled. Did I do something wrong? Lauren, the woman in leather, asked. There's no right or wrong. We have to do what makes us happy, Lillian responded arrogantly. Lauren was relieved. Vixen, what should we do tonight? Find some girls to come to the venue. I'll handle the rest. I'm more curious to know what Kiran would think. Lillian smirked. Kiran, Lauren said. Just do as I say. Lillian remembered seeing Kiran and Yvonne leaving Blooming Group together. She wondered if he had crawled into her bed. Lauren did not ask her any more questions. She just nodded. Then she got out of the car, and Lillian drove off. Soon, they started to go to work at Neptune's Cove Karaoke. When Onyx returned to Xander Corporation, he did not tell Kiran what happened because he thought he could handle it himself. After that, he started training intensively. He planned to take his men there tonight as he refused to let someone take away their territory. Even if the three families were backing them up, no one dared to treat them like that after Kiran walked all over them. Then, Serena drove back with Crystal and Lily. Crystal was in a nurse uniform, and Lily was grimacing in pain after Kiran broke her hands. Onyx saw the three women walk into the building. He was wondering what was going on, but he did not ask. Kiran had been in the office the whole time, holding Snow, who was sleeping soundly in his arms. All he could think about was the rise of the York family. He had a goal and a clear direction, but there were many obstacles ahead. Creak! Serena opened the door, and the three women stood there. They immediately shut up when they saw Kiran hugging Snow to sleep. Serena and Crystal were worried about waking her up. On the other hand, Lily was afraid of upsetting him. When Serena found her, she made it clear that Kiran wanted to help her heal her wrist. To Lily, it felt like she had been given a second chance. The doctors at the hospital told her it was incurable and required amputation. When Kiran saw them, he nodded and carried Snow into the room. He gently put her down and kissed her on the forehead before walking out. Snow was woken up by his kiss. She opened her eyes and saw his silhouette. Her heart was full. Her husband may have been cold to others, but he was affectionate toward her. Kiran walked out of the office, and Serena gently closed the door. Kiran ignored Lily. Instead, he looked at Crystal in a nurse uniform. He never would have thought that she was a nurse. Plus, she looked even more attractive in that uniform. Crystal could feel Kiran's gaze. She was scared, but she quickly asked him, "Are you still angry about last time?" Serena explained, "Kiran, I found Lily, thanks to Crystal." Lily quickly kneeled and said, "Mr. Kiran, I was wrong. Please save me." "Now it hurts?" Kiran said coldly. Lily nodded and cried, "I don't want to lose my hands." Kiran looked at Serena and said, "Let me use your office." Serena knew that he was worried about waking Snow up, so she turned and led them downstairs. When they got to her office, Kiran looked at Crystal and said, "Good work, thank you. You may leave now." Crystal felt his indifference toward her, so she looked at Serena pleadingly. "Crystal and Starly want to get closer to you." Serena helped her put in a good word. "Sure." Kiran remained emotionless. I'll just leave." Crystal looked disappointed. "I'll see you off." Serena grabbed her arm and glared at Kiran before the two of them walked out. Now that Lily and Kiran were the only ones left, Lily got even more nervous. She kept stealing glances at him. "Do you know why I wanted to see you?" Kiran asked. I do. "Mr. Kiran, if you have any questions, I'll tell you everything I know." Lily was not stupid. She knew that Kiran wanted to ask her about Blooming Group. Otherwise, she would be useless to him. Smart. Even your death wouldn't be enough to pay for what you did. Kiran's tone was icy cold. Yes, Lily nodded repeatedly. "I'll help you stop the pain, so you have to answer my questions." Kiran held the silver needle in his hand. Lily was so desperate she could burst into tears. When the needle entered her pressure points, Lily felt instantly relieved. She was filled with hope, but she also grew even more scared of Kiran. "How did the Simmons build their empire?" Kiran asked. "I don't know the details, but I know that the Simmons connections are mainly from Mr. Simmons. He was the one who built the family into what it is today." "How did he climb his way up at Bayville University?" Kiran asked next. "I think it was because of his research. I think he goes to Dragonsmount for a month every year to observe and write a report. He doesn't publish it, but I don't know who he gives them to. When they're satisfied with it, the Simmons will receive a huge lump sum. He was then recognized for his work, which helped his career too," said Lily. Kiran was surprised. He never would have imagined that he earned his fortune from unpublished reports. He said, "Do you know who he sends them to?" Lily shook her head. I don't know, and Marshall doesn't know either. Kiran was disappointed by her answer, but he continued asking, how did his family deal with blooming cream? They asked for help from someone who was from the School of Medicine, replied Lily. School of Medicine? Kiran scoffed. The School of Medicine again. What a small world. There's someone named Quentin Young from the School of Medicine. He found the problem with the cream, so he gave them the formula. How did the Simmons get in touch with Quentin? Kiran asked. Lily shook her head and said, Mr. Simmons contacted him, so I'm not sure, but I'm guessing his power comes from the people supporting their family. Kiran stayed silent. He agreed with what she said. Otherwise, there was no way they could have hired someone from the School of Medicine. Quentin left. He's no longer in Bayville, Lily added. Kiran nodded and raised an eyebrow. Do you still want to be Mrs. Simmons? Chapter 238. Can I still be Mrs. Simmons? Lily looked at her broken wrist. Kiran smiled without saying anything. Lily realized that he was giving her a choice. She kneeled in front of Kiran and said, Mr. Kiran, if you let me be Mrs. Simmons, I'll do anything you want and find out all the Simmons family secrets. Thud. Lily groveled at his feet. She was no longer arrogant in front of Kiran, nor was she as menacing as she was when she beat up Yvonne. She was like a pitiful stray dog, wagging its tail and hoping that Kiran would cure her. I can cure you, but whether you can be Marshall's woman depends on you. Kiran was calm. As long as I can go back, I will confidently be Marshall's woman, Lily assured Kiran. I can relieve the pain in your wrist and reattach the bone, but I can't guarantee full recovery now, Kiran said thoughtfully. Lily nodded and promised, I'll find Mr. Simmons's old thesis and give it to you. Kiran did not say a word. He put her hand on the table and started to perform acupuncture on her while reconnecting her broken bones little by little. In Lily's eyes, Kiran was no longer the monster that hurt her, but he was her savior. She was excited and overjoyed. She knew that if it were not for the Simmons family's secret, she would mean absolutely nothing to him. Serena returned from seeing Crystal off. She rolled her eyes when she saw Kiran cure Lily. She was upset that he drove her away. Kiran pretended not to notice. He paused to write a note and handed it to Serena. Go buy some medicine and come back. I needed to reattach her bones. No, Serena refused. Cancel tonight's plans, Kiran said bossily. Tonight's plans? Serena froze. Then she remembered when Kiran spanked her. She blushed and was short of breath. In the end, she rolled her eyes and left with the note. Lily did not know what was going on, but as a woman, she could sense something going on between Kiran and Serena. She decided to get closer to Serena after this, so Serena could help her put in a good word next time. An hour later, Kiran cured her. She thanked him repeatedly, but he did not care at all. She knew that Kiran wanted her to leave, so she immediately bid him farewell. She left Serena her contact information before leaving too, which Kiran allowed her to do. Only Serena and Kiran were left. Serena took his hand and said, Kiran, don't wait until tonight. First. Snow. Kiran looked toward the door and shouted. Serena nervously turned to look. Snow was nowhere to be seen. By then, Kiran had already made his escape. Kiran, you. Serena stamped her feet and shouted angrily. Then she said, You can't run away from me. She chased after him. Kiran went upstairs to Snow's office with a smile on his face. Snow had already woken up and was analyzing the documents. However, she panicked a little when she saw Kiran. Would he laugh at her? What if he did? She tried to remain calm as if nothing happened earlier. Do me a favor, Kiran said smilingly. What is it? Snow sounded distant on purpose. Some woman has taken a fancy to me. What should I do? Kiran asked. Snow initially thought he was talking about her, so she stood up and said, Jerk! I don't fancy you. I'm talking about Serena. Kiran smiled. Snow wanted to cry. She misunderstood him again. She wanted to crawl into a hole and die. Snow and I have discussed this before. We want to marry the same man. Serena's voice came from outside the door. She was not going to let him run away, so she went after him. Kiran pretended to be scared of her. He ran next to Snow and hugged her arm. Snow was about to say something when Kiran interrupted her. This is what happens when you take too many Viagra pills. Snow was speechless. Ha ha. Serena burst out laughing. You bastard. Snow lifted her hand to hit Kiran on the head. Kiran grabbed her wrist and smiled. He said to Serena, Look, my wife loves me, and I love her. so stop trying to get with me. Serena raised her eyebrow. Kiran, you must think carefully. If I stop trying to get with you, I'll try to get with your wife instead. What do you mean? Kiran asked. Use your imagination, Serena said mysteriously. Do you guys like each other? Kiran looked horrified. Yup, the two women said excitedly. Kiran was dumbstruck. Ha. Snow broke free from Kiran's hand and high-fived Serena. They managed to work together and torment Kiran this time. Kiran realized he had been played. He looked at Serena and angrily said, Have you found a woman to seduce Marshall? Yup, Serena laughed. Good. Kiran's anger calmed down. I'll go myself. Serena shot him a seductive look. Kiran was speechless. Serena moved her body around him seductively. Pfff. Snow burst out laughing. Go to hell, Kiran said coldly. Is Kiran jealous? Serena said as she looked at Snow. You're right, he's in love with you, Snow said while laughing. Both of you are crazy, Kiran muttered before going into sleep. It had been a long day. He cured Yvonne, Frank, and Lily. He even made medicine. All of that drained his energy. Snow and Serena exchanged glances and conversed through their eyes. We succeeded in tormenting him, Serena. I like Kiran too. Go after him! You have my blessing. I love you, best friend. Good luck! Kiran did not know that after Snow's parents disappeared and Serena's master died, they had formed a sister-like bond. Serena risked her life to save Snow countless times, so they agreed to marry the same man in the future. Why else would Serena so openly seduce Kiran? Kiran did not know that his wife came with a side chick. After the rumors about his father and Zara, he loved Snow even more. He wanted to stay with her forever. Kiran was still asleep at 6 in the evening. Snow and Serena were busy coming up with plans. Meanwhile, Onyx and his men left Xander Corporation to go to Neptune's Cove Karaoke. The entrance to Neptune's Cove Karaoke swung wide open. There was upbeat music, balloons in the air, and sexy ladies on stage. Young men and women swarmed around the place. News of their reopening had spread throughout Bayville. When Onyx reached Neptune's Cove Karaoke, his face turned gloomy. Chapter 239. Mister, Onyx's men shouted, clenching their fists. The lively atmosphere at Neptune's Cove Karaoke angered them. Onyx was also fuming. However, he was still being rational. He raised his hand, signaling them to be quiet. However, their anger kept growing. Then Onyx stepped into the place. Some people in the crowd could recognize him. When they saw him, they made way and greeted him. Onyx walked past them straight toward the stage. The 7 ladies on stage were dancing passionately. They were young and enchantingly beautiful. They wore sexy blue miniskirts to show off their long and slender thighs. They tossed their long hair around, fully embracing the beauty of their youth. Even if many people greeted Onyx, they immediately returned their attention to the stage. Boom, boom, boom. The dance music was loud and upbeat, as if it were reminding Onyx that Neptune's Cove Karaoke was no longer his. Onyx's blood was boiling. Fuck off! He roared at the top of his lungs. It was a deafening sound, and it echoed for a while. The people standing next to him were so frightened they trembled in fear. Some even cursed and screamed. Suddenly, the entire place was filled with chaos and tension. The women on stage carried on their crazy and passionate performance as if they did not hear him. Onyx was furious. Who were these people? How dare they ignore him? Onyx's men started shouting too. CK off! The crowd was so scared they backed away. Many people looked at the stage with ashen faces, wondering if there would be a fight. However, the women performed like they were deaf. One of them even did a split and bent backward to show off her flexibility and alluring charm. Onyx and his men were raging. Tear the place down, Onyx ordered his men. Woo. Onyx's men took action immediately. With such a good performance, beautiful women, and an amazing crowd, wouldn't it be a waste to tear it down? Lauren appeared in front of them, wearing her leather outfit. Onyx scowled at her when he saw that Lauren was alone. She was covered in leather from head to toe, making her look extremely irresistible. Lauren ignored Onyx's men as if they did not exist. When Onyx saw the performances, he knew that Lauren did it on purpose. When she invited him and his men over, she was obviously looking down on him. His anger was out of control now. Get rid of her, Onyx said the 4 words through gritted teeth. Go to hell. Onyx's men cursed and swarmed toward Lauren. Onyx sneered inwardly. It seemed like she would have to pay a hefty price. However, Lauren ignored those running toward her. She was calm and steady. His men were irritated by her attitude. It fueled their anger, and they charged toward her. Lauren looked like a sheep surrounded by wolves. It seemed like she would fall after a single punch. Many onlookers closed their eyes. They could not bear to see what would happen to Lauren. They could predict what was going to happen next. The 7 women on stage were the only ones who continued dancing sexily despite the chaos. When they got nearer, a series of loud bangs were heard. Ah! Then, there were cries of agony. The people who had their eyes closed were shocked when they saw what happened. Onyx's men flew in different directions. Bing, bang, boom! They all fell to the ground and screamed. They rubbed their eyes to make sure they saw correctly. Lauren walked through the crowd like a shadow in her dark leather outfit. She had a gorgeous figure under those clothes. With the music and dancing women on stage, the entire scene livened up again. However, Onyx's men were suffering. Each one of them went flying, and they were coughing up blood. It was a ghastly sight. Onyx was dumbstruck. How could such a beautiful woman be so brutal? Lauren was not Kiran. Only Kiran could fight his men. Who was she to fight them? Enough was enough. The others, go surround her in groups of 4s, Onyx ordered. If not for Kiran's training today and their renewed desire to prove their strength, they would have been cowering in fear already. They knew that there was strength in numbers, so they formed groups of 4s. You idiots! What's the difference? Lauren mocked. As soon as she said that, the groups who surrounded her flew in every direction, too. Damn you! Another 4 rushed toward her. Once again, Lauren sent them flying. In less than 10 minutes, Onyx was the only one left standing. His men were all knocked down. Chills went down his spine at the sight of this. Onyx, are you going to sell Neptune's Cove karaoke to me, or do you want me to beat you up too? Lauren said mockingly. Chapter 240. Onyx felt like his world was crumbling. In a matter of days, his men had been knocked down twice. The first time, Kiran did it, so it was an honor. However, Lauren was nothing compared to Kiran. How could he surrender to her? In your dreams, Onyx roared. He spun and sent a flying kick at Lauren. Lauren looked fragile and delicate in that leather outfit of hers. It seemed like she would snap in half with Onyx's kick, but she did not retreat. Instead, she faced him head-on. Onyx scoffed. He was certain that his kick would send her flying. Bam! Onyx felt his leg land on something rock-solid. There was a strong vibration, and his leg went numb. He stumbled backward, trying to stabilize himself. Onyx was dumbstruck when he saw Lauren withdraw her right arm. She casually blocked his kick with a single arm. She was like an adult playing with a child. Onyx could not believe his eyes. How could this be? He did not think he was a weakling. The force of that kick would have been at least a few 100 kilograms, but she was unscathed. It turned out that he was indeed the weakling in this scenario. When she told him to bring strong men, he thought that she was bluffing. Now, he realized that she was being serious. Who was this female monster? Onyx glowered at her as if she were a beast and he was ready to attack. Give up. You're no match for me. Just call Mr. Kiran, said Lauren with more arrogance this time. Onyx's face fell and his eyes twitched. She knew that he worked for Kiran, yet she still picked a fight with him. She was declaring war. You better hurry. We open for business at 8. It's less than an hour away, so stop disrupting our business, Lauren said nonchalantly, as if she was not afraid of Kiran. Onyx hesitated for a moment. Seeing as many people were showing up, he would be severely beaten up and humiliated if he carried on, so he called Kiran. At that moment, Kiran was sleeping in Snow's office. Snow and Serena knew that he was exhausted, so they did not wake him. They kept devising plans while waiting for him to wake up himself. When his phone rang, he woke up and saw that Onyx called. He picked up and asked, "What's the matter?" "Mr. Kiran, I ran into some trouble. They brazenly took Neptune's Cove karaoke away from us, and they're reopening it tonight at 8 o'clock. All my men are down," Onyx said worriedly. "Who did this?" On the contrary, Kiran sounded calm. "A woman in leather clothes?" said Onyx. "Wait for me." Kiran hung up and walked out of the room. Snow and Serena were surprised to see him rush out of the room with a calm expression. "I won't be in the way of you lovebirds." Serena got up and glanced at Kiran's pants before laughing her way out. Snow blushed and tried not to panic. She looked at Kiran and grumbled, "You slept for so long, you pig." Kiran scratched his nose and said, "You and Serena can go back first. I must go out and deal with something. Where are you going this time?" Snow did not think that he would ignore her teasing. She suddenly became wary and stood up to block him. "Do you care about me that much?" Kiran smiled. Snow's face reddened. Kiran smirked. His wife was so stubborn. It was obvious that she loved him, but she always pretended like she did not. He did not expose her for it. "Since you don't care about me, don't ask. Bye, I'll talk to you when I come back." Kiran left. Snow was furious. She swung her fists in the air while watching him leave. "Ah!" Kiran cried in pain as if he had been attacked, and he fell back onto the door. "What happened?" Snow exclaimed and ran over to hold him in her arms. Kiran's pale face looked like he was in extreme pain. "Kiran, what happened to you?" Snow was about to cry. I've been hit by my wife's air punches. I'm injured." Kiran leaned closer into her arms. Snow realized she had been played. The concern on her face disappeared. She pushed him hard and said, "Jerk, back off!" "Ah," Kiran cried again, but this time he ran out, laughing. Snow's face was red. How did she always manage to humiliate herself in front of him time and time again? Deep down, she could never be angry at him. Instead, her heart was full. Kiran saw Serena waiting for him on the first floor. "Take Snow back with you. Someone has taken over Neptune's Cove karaoke. Onyx's men are injured, so I have to go see who they're up against." Kiran did not hide anything from Serena. "They're that strong?" Serena was shocked. "Apparently, a woman in a leather outfit knocked down all of his men," Kiran added. "Oh my." Serena smiled charmingly and said, "Kiran, do you think she wanted you there because she's interested in you?" Kiran glared at her. "What's wrong with you? Did you forget the woman who tried to kill me by pretending to be you last night?" Serena shrugged. "Of course, I remember. I suspect it could be her too." "It doesn't matter if it is her, but I must let her know her place." Kiran sounded sinister. Serena nodded. "Go. I'll take care of Snow for you." Kiran nodded and left. "What if I help you better too?" Serena jumped up and down while shouting at him. Kiran stumbled and almost fell to the ground after hearing that. What an animal! How dare she say that about his woman? Ha ha. Serena laughed after successfully teasing him. Kiran did not look back. There was only one thing on his mind. He wondered if Serena would come back and get Snow if he were to abandon her. The thought of them together sent chills down his spine. Kiran drove to Neptune's Cove karaoke. Meanwhile, Serena went up to find Snow. She was not going to let go of such an opportunity. She must take her to see the woman who was so brazenly seeking Kiran's attention. At Neptune's Cove karaoke. Lauren glanced at her watch and looked at Onyx. She said impatiently, "If Kiran isn't here in half an hour, I won't waste time waiting." Onyx's face was turning livid, but he did not call again. Suddenly, there came the sound of tires screeching, followed by Kiran's booming voice. "I'm here.